Today, we'll learn about how our European ancestors got here through the history of immigration and researching passenger lists. I'm your trainer, Lori Coffey, and I was born outside the United States. So even I had to take a boat ride to get here. Both my parents were Americans already, so technically I wasn't an immigrant. First, we'll talk about the history, and then we'll talk about the passenger lists. So, who were the first immigrants? The intrepid colonists who paved the way for the rest of us. Immigration from Europe to the New World began in 1492 when Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Good, I'm glad you remember that. Leaving 39 sailors in Haiti, and it still continues today. As you can imagine, each experience is unique, yet they have many similarities. The early ships were made for cargo, and the passengers were not listed on the ship's manifest. However, many lists have been compiled into journals and letters, land records, and are available for research. Spanish adventurers established America's first enduring colony in St. Augustine in Florida. In 1513, while searching for the Fountain of Youth, Juan Ponce de Leon claimed Florida for the Spanish. 6 expeditions followed. In 1565, with pomp and circumstance and a crowd of 600 cheering, Admiral Don Pedro Menendez de Avilés named the city after a Catholic saint. By 1820, nearly 1 million Spaniards had come to Norte Americana. However, Florida didn't become a territory of the United States until 1821 and a state in 1845. So we won't be discussing more on Spanish immigration today, just a little bit. Un pequeño. In 1607, 104 English men and boys left the London legal keys in England, headed to Virginia colony in 3 ships to start a new settlement to find marketable resources. Jamestown, named after King James I, became the first permanent English settlement in North America. The passenger list, compiled by Captain Bartholomew Gosnold, is at jamestown.org. By 1610, John Rolfe, also known as Mr. Pocahontas, brought tobacco to Virginia to create a marketable resource. And by 1622, 1,400 English immigrants had come to the colony, 300 at a time. Meanwhile, in 1620, English families totaling 102 people left England for New England on one lone ship called what? Mayflower, to plant a colony based on religious freedom. They landed at Plymouth in Massachusetts. It became the first permanent family settlement in New England. This passenger list, cobbled together by Governor William Bradford, is available at mayflowerhistory.com. By 1648, 20,000 English immigrants with families came to New England, many by the shipful of church groups, until King Charles I was deposed by Oliver Cromwell, and it was now safe to stay in England, thus ending the first great migration based on religion. But the concept of religious freedom spread to many groups, like the first 23 Jews who came in 1654 to New Amsterdam, which became what? New York, that's right. In doing so, they expanded the frontier of religious freedoms. Then an estimated 200,000 Scots sailed here before 1820, making Scots the biggest ethnic group of immigrants before the American Revolution. They arrived at the ports of Newcastle in Delaware and Philadelphia. When Charles II came to the throne, thanks to William Penn's father, the king gave the young Quaker a land grant for Pennsylvania. He was the largest landowner that was non-royal. 175,000 English immigrants came by the fleet starting at 1682, also seeking religious freedom. Of the 100,000 Germans who came to Penn's forests, 5,000 were Hessians to help Baron von Steuben and our patriots win the revolution. Let's look at one specific immigration story from a little later, 1840, written in a journal translated from the original Norwegian on norwayheritage.com. Luckily, it was the same voyage my family took. My 4th great-grandfather, Ivan Hansen, and his wife, Siri Olsdotter, brought their 4 young children, including 11-year-old Hans Evanson. This was only the second voyage to America for the old cargo ship Emily. Captain Anderson was the first Norwegian owner and master to bring a full medical kit and encourage cleanliness among the passengers. Only 2 years later, the future wife of Hans came over with her family on an overcrowded ship, where 3 of her relatives died at sea of typhoid fever, along with many other passengers. This ship left Norway on June 12th after a stop in Gothenburg in Sweden to pick up a load of iron bars, both as ballast and to sell in New York. Like all sailboats, she had to wait for the wind. Then it built with a vengeance. When they were mid-ocean, a severe storm hit them, giving the old ship such a shaking that the timbers holding the upper berths gave way, crashing into the lower berths. The cries and screams of the passengers added to the fury of the storm. After 10 weeks at sea, Emily and her passengers and crew arrived safely at New York Harbor. Unlike the ship's first voyage, where some passengers had to dress like sailors to disguise their passenger count, everyone on this voyage was legal. In the city, Captain Anderson, who spoke English, helped them buy passage on a steamer boat. My family and many others moved all their possessions onto this new ship and headed up the Hudson River to Albany. They transferred all their goods again to a slow barge headed over the Erie Canal. They got to walk alongside it many times because it was so slow. All the way to Buffalo, the gateway of the Great Lakes, where they moved to another steamer, all of their cargo and their children, the 4 smart children. Headed to Milwaukee, where they heard the climate is similar to Norway. Do you see the snow at the bottom? I'm so glad we left. From there, they pushed or pulled their possessions one final time, the last 30 miles to Muskego, where their American adventure was just beginning.